So, good morning. For some of you, good afternoon. My name is Bill Coakley. Thanks for joining our second BSMA Strategic Sourcing Steering Committee meeting. I was going to start by asking everybody to introduce themselves. Please, I'll call out the name and tell me the company that you represent. And then I will start sharing slides, go over the agenda, and turn it over to our co-chairs. So with that said, again, kindly share the company you're from. I'll start with, I'm reading the list of participants I see and go in that order. Giant?
Yeah, hi, Jayant. I'm working for War Bio, heading up their clinical and commercial supply chain.
Okay, welcome. Keisha Mitchell?
Hi, good morning. I'm working for Gilead Sciences, Inc., and I support research on the procurement side.
Okay. Shesh Sharma?
Yes, my name is Shesh Sharma and representing InnoLinks Incorporated.
Tim Jordan?
Tim Jordan. I'm currently at Siemens Healthineers Varian, which is part of Siemens Healthineers, and I'm the global head of supplier management.
Okay. Alex Fleischer?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I represent Illumina and run supply chain for Americas.
Okay, welcome. And for those of you who know of any opportunities, Alex is in between jobs right now, so reach out to him, or if you could, or if you are unable to, let Devendra and I know, and we'll connect you should you be aware of any opportunities. Marina.
Hi, I represent Cedar Sinai, and I support the IT and security department in their expansion projects, goods and services.
Okay, welcome. Narayan?
Yes, Narayan Balachandran. Hello, everybody. I'm an independent consultant to biopharmaceutical companies. Before that, I spent 22 years at Amgen, half of it in sourcing and procurement, where I ended leading sourcing for Amgen R&D and technical operations, and also the 10 years on the business side, on the operations side as well.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome. Sasha.
Well, working for Sanaclis, a global CRO, and heading their global business development team.
Okay, welcome. Kat Hall.
Hi, everyone. I am Kat Hall, head of GXP Quality Assurance at a company called Ignite, and helping Bill and Devendra with being co-chair. So I'm just here to listen in on what this work stream's been up to. I have to drop at the bottom of the half hour, but it's good.
Okay, thank you. Kay Tiemann.
You're on mute, Kay.
There we go. Sorry about that. Kay Tiemann, Vice President of Business Development for Unifar. I'm here as a new member of BSMA, and we're kind of getting to know the different committees and steering committees. And we have a global sourcing division, so I'm just learning to see who we might plug in as a practitioner to be on this group. So thank you and happy to learn.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kay.
Absolutely.
Marcos.
Hi, everybody. My camera is on, but I don't see my face, so I'm not sure what's going on. Marcos Boas with Scale Up Consulting, Biopharma Supply Chain, and I've been delighted to be to the BSMA conferences here in the US and in Europe, so I'm looking forward to learning more on this subject.
Expected. Earthquake.
Yeah, I know, huh? Was it just my phone? Other people get that?
Yeah.
No earthquake here, thank God. Be careful wherever you are.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lag typically, so okay.
Yeah, earthquake detection drop.
Oh, God.
Okay, I didn't feel anything shake. Okay, Renee.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Renee. I'm from Bayer in Bayer's procurement department for biologics development projects. Yeah, here the first time, so just trying to listen in and see how we can contribute.
Okay, thank you and welcome. Thank you. Christopher Jacks.
Hey, Bill and team. Christopher Jacks, lead our global procurement organization at Catalent.
Okay, thank you. And Christopher is one of our three co-chairs. Did I miss anybody?
Inga.
Yes, I
Oh
just,
yeah, Inga.
sorry. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Inga Nadezhnikova. I'm the Senior Supply Chain Manager at Amgen, managing the global comparator sourcing team.
Okay, great. Thank you and welcome. Okay, I'm going to share screen. Can people see my screen? It should be showing the
Yes, we
agenda.
do.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. We just finished the first bullet, which was introductions. Because many of you are new to BSMA, I'm going to spend just 1 or 2 minutes giving a little more information about BSMA. So you'll see a couple slides on that. And then I'm going to turn it over to our co-chairs who are going to provide information about our charter, get your input on that, and have a group discussion on various topics. There's so many that we could talk about. We'll start with the ones that you see here. Then the last slide that I'll share at the end of the call will be our next meeting date. So with that said, BSMA has several steering committees. You can see them on the slide right now. The strategic sourcing one is our newest. But you can see here that if you are or someone in your organization is interested in these other areas and subjects, by all means go onto our website and feel free to sign up for those. Any questions on this slide?
Yeah, I just had a thought, and I don't know why this didn't come to me before. Why do you think it is that the Strategic Sourcing Steering Committee was one of the latest committee to be formed? Do you think yeah.
Yeah, it was actually the first.
Okay.
So it's a strange history. It was the first. I created it about 15 years ago. And then I moved to a company where my responsibility included clinical studies. I knew very little about clinical studies, so I created that one, and and my responsibility there did not include strategic sourcing. So just because of my bandwidth, I focused on one and not the other. But there's always been a desire to get back into this because of, as shown by today's meeting, the interest in this area. So full circle, we're back in it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I wanted to inform everybody, as I did the last call, that BSMA has done a lot of improvements and upgrades to its website over the past 2 to 4 months. And with that said, if you are interested in learning more about the steering committee meetings, or steering committees, work stream groups, and joining any one of them or having people within your organizations do so, please go to this website. You can see the link on the bottom of this slide. It also includes information about dates for our next meetings, workstream group meetings, webinars, conferences. So you can go there, see the dates, register for those events, and last but not least, the slides and recordings of everything I've just described can also be found there. for you should you miss any of those meetings and want to hear and see what was discussed. Case in point, we had a webinar earlier this week on mostly geared towards clinical pack and labeling. 130 people registered from over 10 countries. So the recording from that is there if you have any interest in clinical supply chain or you want to share it with that department within your organization that might find value in it. The last slide that I am going to share before I turn it over is to let everybody know that our next annual conference was originally announced as March 18th and 19th at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Foster City, which is where we always have it. You see in red that we're now adding a third day, March 17th, because of a number of requests, both from service providers as well as manufacturing companies for workshops. So we're working behind the scenes with many subject matter experts on various topics. So stay tuned. You'll start seeing more and more of that either on our website or through various announcements. The hope is that during today's call, a topic will resonate based on the interest expressed from this group that will be included in on the agenda for this session. We already know that one topic that's likely to take place here that some of you are probably going to be interested in is a panel discussion on comparators. But as I said, there'll likely be another one on a topic that you folks show passion about during our meeting today. So I'm going to turn it over to Chesh, who's one of our three co-chairs, to help facilitate the call, starting with our charter.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Good morning, everybody. So, one of the things that we, Devendra and myself and a few others did a few months ago was what should be our mission for the strategic sourcing committee, and some of the we have 8 bullet points that we identified as charter. So all our activities going forward will touch upon these 8 bullet points. And to Bill's point, in terms of what are the topics for discussion, kind of touches upon these 8 points as well as a couple of bullet points that we have identified with respect to what is happening in the market, what should we be looking at given the current macro and economic environment. So the first 3 bullet points, if you look at this, it's basically knowledge sharing. We are creating a platform. It's a collaborative, because I'm not going to go through each individual bullet points. I'll just hit on the main points and what we have in the charter. So we want to create a collaborative platform at BSMA. So that is a primary driver for this, because mainly from a knowledge sharing perspective, because everyone comes from different, even within biotech, different domains, I would say. And we can identify best practices, then anything that is one of the things that Bill highlighted was what are the other topics that will resonate. Maybe it's a technology, maybe it's a process improvement, some of the innovations that is driving the industry. That's another thing that we want to look at. And the rest of them is like relates to how is the productivity improvement for an organization. If you look at the fourth bullet point, ensuring efficiency, securing delivery, and mitigating risk across the value chain, and then focusing on supplier diversity and sustainability. And then also we want to develop how procurement becomes more relevant within the organization, within the C-suite. What are the ideas that we can bring to the table? What is that we need to discuss as a group in some of the conferences that will come up? Because that's a key factor for most of the organization to gain leverage within the business with the business partners. Then we also, the seventh one, which is, we want to bring in sourcing models from other industries. We have always done it and will continue to do it. And it goes as part of knowledge sharing. But the last one is a global purchase, group purchasing organization that Devendra and I have talked, many times on this one, is this model still relevant, or can we set up this one and is it going to be beneficial to all the companies that are participating within the BSMA and those that don't even participate and may come to know of it? So this is the kind of the eight points of the charter that we're driving to, and we can uh, say, hey, this is in the upcoming conferences. We can say, hey, this is we like about supplier diversity and sustainability. So maybe we have a topic that we want to have a session on, or we can talk about how do we set up a GPO, or how do we what are the best practices that is driving the industry right now, especially given the technology development with respect to AI and all those things. So I'll just stop here and let every one of you take a look at this and see what do you think and get your inputs. And if everyone's okay with it, then we can move on.
There anything that we might have missed?
Where would we be thinking about setting up long-term contracts, especially when we are looking at safety stocks for your key materials?
I think that could indirectly come under risk mitigation because, but we can put that as setting up long contracts and everything. That's a good point.
Could be
Or I
like
was
the
even
industry
thinking that
standards for LTAs or something like that.
Yeah.
I was also thinking maybe under the third bullet, we talk about optimizing sourcing strategies. So sounds like that's a strategy, right? In terms of getting longer term agreements
Yeah.
or
I think Jay also was hitting on critical materials and contracts for them. I
Right.
think he from the cell and gene therapy world, which is very close to him. So uh, the uh, the critical materials is covered under risk,
Okay.
and we can explicitly call out long-term contracts for critical materials, maybe.
Yeah, Saish, this is Narayan. I think this is really good. It could be covered in the risk, but topic du jour is all this tariffs and some of the geopolitical dynamics that's happening and how procurement partner of that. It could be in the risk. Maybe can call out, but I understand it's topic. It may not be there in a couple of years, but right now it's
Yeah.
pretty relevant.
Because when we are trying to influencing the C-suite, most of the time we get inquiries about how are you ensuring supply assurance,
Yeah.
what's the contract stuff, and legal starts getting involved in that. That's where I was coming from.
Right. Right. Okay. Noted. Yeah.
And are we referring just to direct, or would be also this including indirect procurement activities?
It's both direct,
It's
indirect,
both. Okay. Okay. So
all of
services
them.
is
This
included
includes
as
all
well.
of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I might add too. I mean, yes, definitely direct and indirect, but I'm hoping it also covers um, um, areas such as contract services, CMOs, and things of that nature. And if for no other reason, I know that there's a lot of companies where the purchasing organization is sort of shut out from those negotiations, or they find out about it too little, too late. So it would be great to rely on those who have been successful in achieving success in those areas to share their wisdom and experience and how they've been able to be effective in that area.
Yeah, you're right, especially for the CROs and CMOs, not only from the group purchasing organization perspective, but also how do we get ahead and be part of those initial dialogues, and that's where the one of the biggest problems is really, and gentlemen from Catalan can talk about that, I'm sure. What happens if you don't have your dedicated suite for manufacturing production of your product and everything. So that's the problem. That's one of the, in my experience, unfortunate situations when you are, you know, after a year of pre-negotiations, you are then brought in, and then it might be late to change the terms.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we can talk about that later on in the call. Thanks.
I have one question. We're talking about creating a collaborative platform for procurement professionals, but we also have a handful of vendor representatives on the call. And I have seen other strategic sourcing initiatives that are then become very limited to access for vendors. So it would be nice to assure that we're not just talking about supplier diversity as a goal for each company, but also for the specific steering committee that supplier diversity is maintained.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
To the next slides, Shash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all for your inputs. We will incorporate this, and in the next meeting, we will kind of share that. Yeah. So we came up with two major topics for discussion. What are the current challenge of sourcing and procurement? And we all know what's going on right now, given the fact, cost of doing business is very high, inflation, labor market is becoming soft. So from a procurement, you're all leaders in procurement and so sourcing. So what is that you see as current challenges going forward? And as a backup to that, we'll go into the next question later on. But how are you impacting the profitability of your company given these challenges? So with that, I will leave it open for a panel discussion. Is that okay, Bill? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I could start with a case study that I'm deeply involved in right now. We are moving into the auto injector market, and we are talking to Ipsomed and SHL and others. And where we are running into sourcing and procurement is on the plastic parts that come through that are needed for the needle safe device. We are doing also PFS and STs too. Where we find as a small, very small company, we are just getting yanked around in terms of I don't have enough material for you, and I can't go in and say that you've procured it for me. And long lead times are killing us. And I don't have a second source, so I can't change out from a BD 1 ml long syringe to something similar out very quickly. So those are the two main challenges.
Yeah, Jayant, this is Narayan. I mean, just building on that, right? The industry I've been closest to recently is construction, and it's similar challenges, right? With all the huge demand you're seeing for so much construction across, right? You read in the news every day, companies investing. So lead times are becoming very, very long for equipment, for electrical components, and procurement need to work very, very closely with the business, right? To really understand that. And I think that's driving things like standardization, for example, right? If you standardize and buy more of the similar type of equipment, then the lead times hopefully will be less. So lead times are clearly a challenge, and procurement has really have to partner very, very closely with the business, right? That's building on that, Giant. I can relate to that. Yeah, and then I have a couple of others, but I just wanted to build on your point here, Giant.
Yeah, thank you. And what we have done is we are just adding one entire batch of backup supply material as carrying cost on our books. There's nothing else we can do.
A couple of other challenges we are facing is tariffs. We're trying to reallocate where we source what from. At the same time, we're trying to also deliver our cost savings targets. Sometimes the challenge here is we're consolidating demand under a preferred supplier, but at the risk of not having a broader, diverse supplier base. Other ways that we have contributed in maintaining margins is we are offshoring our entire AMR-based procurement team to India.
But on the procurement, I would suspect that would be more transactional, right? You'll be sourcing.
The transactional portion, yes. The sourcing is spread between our two main locations in San Diego and in Singapore.
Okay.
Well, challenges with tariffs are really impacting, you mentioned the savings targets, but also the back orders, right? And the delays in deliveries. And it's very permeating throughout. So I think tariffs threw us off the track a lot. I agree that there is a way to consolidate purchases and switch to some maybe more powerful suppliers here internally in the United States. And that leads to a good contract, right, with the major, like, biggest, you mentioned BD, of course. And it's almost like defeats the purpose of diversifying suppliers if they cannot really answer to your demand. So it's like counterintuitive.
Yes, it's a little bit the contradiction here. And yes, we're also facing quality related issues that we thought we turned off and they're re-emerging. So that's also a constant challenge, while we're also trying to actively change transportation modes from airfare to ocean freight at the expense, of course, of extended lead times and increased inventories as well. So that all needs to be set up in balance, and it depends very much on the nature of the part that we're trying to adjust here.
Yeah. It almost leads us to think, at least me, that our best bet is to be the best partner with the process development people, right? After R&D process development, and be there to investigate who could we order it from instead of them dictate and making bill of materials almost without our interference.
Yes, that's a great point too. Many times our wonderful colleagues from R&D and new product introduction are just referring back to old references without understanding perhaps the details that perhaps suppliers change or capabilities changed. And so procurement, specifically sourcing, has been recently more involved in those early design discussions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
I think what comes or plays into that, right, is also kind of refocus for sourcing or procurement activities in that regard. That's a very, I think, mostly direct related topic anyway. But instead of focusing on spend and current value of business, the shift of resource focus also needs to be on future value, right? Because whenever you have a project in your pipeline in R&D, spend is rather low. You have maybe 1, 2, 5 POs a year on certain materials. You wouldn't naturally focus on that because the dollar amount next to it is rather limited. However, down the line, when something goes commercial and you end up with a supplier that is painful, right, or in a supply chain that is painful because of tariffs, because of high cost, because of bad quality whatsoever, you pay the price later.
Yeah, great point.
The tariffs are almost a triple whammy too, because you have the increased cost of the import, right? So then you try and switch to a more local or a non-tariff effect supplier, and now you're losing capacity in those areas too. So that's going to drive up prices as well. And then the fact there's a lot of the sourcing activities are not considering that raw material source either, because those raw materials are then also subject to the tariffs. So it's kind of hitting us in three ways. It's kind of hard to work around them because of the way the market is developing around the sourcing strategies.
Yeah.
Another aspect that might be interesting is the certification of the European products, right, that might go into bill of materials. And sometimes you have certain specs and it's a different designation in Europe. So how do you ahead of time get your quality and manufacturing approve of those so you can import them in the last minute if there is shortage? You know what I'm referring to, right? There are different, let's say if you're getting the saline here, there is different part number versus the part number in Europe, but they're basically the same. But the whole thing of comparing it, it's not done on the quality side, so you cannot quickly switch and pivot and order it. So that also needs to be, I think, looked into as the alternative source and get those things aligned so you can quickly source it if there is a shortage. So it's approved by quality.
So one thought for me is as I was hearing different people talk about tariffs, how we're managing it, has it impacted the price points, and what are the things that some of you are doing to mitigate that?
You ask for more money from finance and tell them, this is the situation. And, sometimes the trick is to give a little bit more to that particular supplier, a little bit of products that you buy from them. But, it is tough. It takes time, unfortunately, and the back orders and slow down cannot be allowed. So, it's
Yeah, because we are seeing the same thing, back orders, and especially because I'm in cell and gene, the supply. Sure, Marina, you know this, we have worked before.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in some cases, they're not even writing long-term contracts right now
Yeah.
because of their issues with maintaining the volume of manufacturing, because they have so much of back orders that they can't really commit to the volume that we are asking for. So that is also a challenge that we are trying to negotiate with. And one of the things we are trying to bring down the pricing is that, hey, we can give you more stuff for you,
Yeah.
and that's going to help. That is the discussion that we're trying to have. And to Jay's point, we are also trying to establish long-term contracts. The typical the Miltennies and the Thermo Fisher Cas9, these type of materials.
Yeah, but
Keisha, I'm interested to hear how you manage that part because you work for Gilead. I worked before for Kite and Gilead. So, what's your risk mitigation technique? Not only tactical but strategic.
Yeah. So I support research, right? So I don't deal very much with the manufacturing or clinical side. But I can give you one example. For instance, speaking of geopolitical situations, when the war in Ukraine started, there was a bit of a scramble to figure out how we were going to alternately source the products that we were getting from there. And, everyone was comfortable with the supplier that was located out there because they really could meet all of their needs. And so having an alternate source was nothing that anyone had considered in quite some time. I mean, more than 10 years. And so then I had to partner with the business to say, okay, what suppliers are you aware of that are on the market that can supply, if not the entire catalog that this supplier has, portions of it? I mean, it was so evident that they hadn't considered mitigation or risk plan around this supply because they gave me names of companies that when I searched for them, either the company names had changed twice or more, or the company no longer existed. Right. And so just going through that exercise is like, wow, you guys really don't have a plan B. And so I had to build a matrix and say, okay, this is the breadth of the catalog that you're getting from this supplier. I can't find any one substitute supplier for you, but we can break down the catalog and we can get this from this person, we can get this from that person, we can get this stuff custom made here if you need it. But we had to build out that matrix and have it readily available just in case things worsen in the region. I don't know how, but the supplier has been for the past 3+ years able to maintain their supplies to us. But at least we have a contingency plan and we have names of alternate sources we can go to. Similarly, during the pandemic, everyone was trying to get tips, right? A lot of the plastic supplies were an issue, and more so because of BARDA, the BARDA Act, and certain companies getting preferential supplies, building out matrix, and also by criticality and making sure we had not only secondary, but tertiary or even a fourth source on that matrix. So not your preferred. But then again, just having the conversations, you realize that sometimes the reason they weren't going to the alternate sources is because of some kind of anecdotal feedback from ages ago. That no one bothered to explore, no one asked for new samples since, no one sat down and had a discussion around specifications, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, these tips work just as well or better. And so, yeah.
I think the specifications, the specs, is something that it's almost negotiable. I know it's not really, but if you talk to your process development people and work hand in hand with quality, then you can really see what is the acceptance criteria really of certain specs, because that's sometimes overrated in a way by these people. And another thing that I find is that if your researchers and PD gets into the these research use only RUO products, then if you have to switch for further manufacturing, if you go into clinical and
then no one is ready for it.
Yes. So you're stuck, and that's the key thing. That's why we need to, I mentioned in the early part of our dialogue, get hand in hand and see, okay, which of these that you're currently using are research use only? How do we proceed? Who makes them? What are the alternative suppliers? And just work in parallel. It's almost like, spinning your wheels ahead of time, and you may never need them, but at least you're ready when you need it. It's that. Those are the stumbling points usually.
So, Marina, you brought up a good point, and I actually had a conversation somewhat related to this with the vendor yesterday. I was saying that in one place I worked in the past, we had a big challenge with specs sort of backing us into a corner. And in addition to that, we found that in a lot of cases, we got some innocent R&D person ordering from Sigma or through the VWR catalog. And next thing you know, we had to start buying it in 55-gallon drums. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you were buying ACS grade. Now you need USP grade. No one's ever used USP grade. Now we got to use it in Europe too. We're stuck. So one thing that we sort of crawled along to get out of it, and the two little things that we did is we had a little check mark on the purchase requisition that said, is this eventually going into a new product? And at least that got the person who's going through 100 purchase requisitions on their desk to know, hey, I got to dig deeper on this one. And then the other thing was trying to educate the QC staff, because they're ultimately creating the specs, and they love to put so much information on that spec, and the more information they put there, as you know, the harder it is to change suppliers or get a secondary supplier, what have you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my intention why I brought this up, because this is the thing that we can influence early on and make it easier for us, right? And by the way, the specs and the research use only, hopefully for everybody, is part of your spreadsheet, right? On the bill of materials. So you see right away, what you can, what are the potential culprits for stoppage for the dead time.
So Siemens, I know I'm a bigger organization and more device than what you're talking about here, but we have functions that were created, that I created in the strategic procurement groups that manage those things. We don't let the engineers check that box. We take, well, what do you need? And then we work with the suppliers. So we had the two functions created, which is basically the new product procurement group.
Yeah.
And they place every requisition, they steer those requisitions to the strategic suppliers we want them to use. So there's no purchase order can be placed without going from an engineer, without going through that group. The second
Absolutely.
Yeah. Was the procurement engineering, and that's where we're talking about those spec changes, those design to cost. You know, is the supplier capable of doing that? Do I need a new supplier? So we have those functions that kind of manage those issues, any interface with the developer, and the ROI on those positions is pretty good, because it also leaves the engineer, instead of spending their time and money creating a requisition, they say, here's my drawing, I need 10 of these for next week. And, you know, then that dialogue happens with, is that production? Is it just for this NPI? And it's managed through that collaboration with those teams. So the early involvement, and I think we presented on this like 15 years ago, Bill, is the early involvement is critical to the actual procurement costs, right? And launching at a lower price, getting those margins as soon as possible for the business has been a critical payback for us at Siemens, getting those early product pricing as low as possible, as well as getting it with the suppliers we want under the contracts, you know, in the right regions. All of those things are managed, because once they're in and once they're with a supplier, especially if you're sole sourced,
it's hard.
You have no control on the
You're
price.
boxed in. Yes.
Yeah, no control.
And Tim, thanks for referring to 15 years ago. Now Keisha knows I just wasn't making that up.
Yeah.
I have a question to Tim. I mean, this is very interesting what you just said. Is any of these processes that you install are digitized, or this is basically a checkbox on an Excel spreadsheet, and tight coordination, you know, at the human level? Meaning, you know, office to office.
I'm not going to say it's 100% digitized, because there's always the people that don't want to do that. But it is a lot of systemic, process driven, deliverables within the project. For example, we have a pretty comprehensive product development program that has a lot of areas for us to get involved in, and check boxes and that process. But the actual purchase requisition is that, you know, there's no non-procurement person can send a purchase order to a supplier, or you know, quotes are not valid unless they're from a procurement person.
Right. Besides the orchestration process that I'm hearing, right? I mean, orchestration meaning the collaboration between the different groups, right? From the very beginning of this process to the end where you receive the raw materials or the second raw materials.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about, you know, the capacity, right? The cost, the lead time, risk of parameters changes, right? You know, there are a variety of the regulatory requirements, like, you know, is that certifications proper for this region, jurisdiction region or not? And then, of course, the quality of materials and the quality of suppliers. I mean, this is like a melting pot, you know, calling for the risk analysis on that. So it's not just a line by line check, right? The dependencies and optimization of that complex, interdependencies, I would say.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive, you know, I say all encompassing. Again, there's always exceptions, but as much as we can get all encompassing, get the right subject matter experts, like you said, quality, regulatory. We talked earlier about specifications. There are parts of the spec that are flexible and parts that aren't. So part of that procurement engineering role we have is working with the suppliers and with the engineers to say, look, if I can relax that spec, you know, by, you know, plus or minus 5 to plus or minus 10%, for example, I can increase my yield, I can increase my capacity, I can increase my price, reliability, all those things that we do in the development phase because that's where it's all designed in. So it is a comprehensive process and program that we use the processes, development processes, and times obviously scheduled. We're part of that development team.
Is that something that you think the GPO should, supply as a part of the, the premise, the group purchasing organizations?
Personally, yes. I think that procurement should be involved very early on. Designing a part is fine, but you've got to design the supply chain. You've got to design the cost. You've got to design the quality. All of that is not just engineers that make it work once and then throw it over the wall. Just here, throw it over the wall and say, "Well, I made it. Now you guys go and manufacture it." And that's not how the real world works, right?
Yes.
Looks right,
Especially
twice.
for scaling later on.
Exactly.
I love this discussion because today I work in procurement, but once upon a time I was a quality engineer, right? For J&J on the medical device side. And I know firsthand how much money you can save yourself by just relaxing a spec, a tolerance that's way too tight. Who set this? Why? Right? And I don't know, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, wow, is there an opportunity for a procurement engineering group at Gilead? It's a little different medical devices versus pharmaceuticals or therapeutics, but maybe it is because they're still sourcing things for the different delivery methods, right? And so I just love it. I definitely think I'm taking this back to the group. Like we have a new value proposition to the organization, right? If we can get in that early, that would be amazing.
And if you think about it, is if the engineering is doing the verification once at the beginning, then you're not fighting again for resources for your cost reductions to adjust that spec down the road. The return is just massive. It's so important.
You've used that return and ROI a couple times during this call, and I'm intrigued by that. And one thing I've often felt is purchasing sometimes gets a black eye because people think they're just in it to try to buy the lowest cost without factoring in all the other things that purchasing and strategic sourcing can add value to. Return ROI, I suppose, is one way of quantifying the value. Another metric I've often been intrigued by is the percentage of spend impacted by purchasing, which if you keep backing into, in theory, if purchasing is involved, purchasing can add value. What are some of the key metrics and key arguments, if you will, that you folks are using to expand your staff?
Expanding stuff like hiring?
Yes.
Outside of growth, I mean, you're talking, Bill, right? So
yeah. I mean, is it simply that you've gone from 1,000 employees to 2,000, so you should be able to double your staff, or is it, I need one person for every 50 requisitions, or is it based on some achievement that you can rest your laurels on and say, for every person I hire, I can add this much value to the organization? I mean, what have people done?
Yeah, we had a couple of examples, a little bit going back to Tim's examples in NPI, right? There's a lot of complexities. There's a lot of high-level programs that need to be launched on time. Having a almost end-to-end sourcing/procurement expert assigned to that specific platform program has resulted in added value because it saved us huge duplications and delays. And so, but at the other hand, it's really kind of sometimes over a year endeavor. So you cannot have one single person really be at the core team for multiple projects or platforms. So it kind of the higher ones, the broader ones, having a dedicated procurement sourcing expert assigned to it, eventually expanded it, has been proven successful.
Do
I can
any of
also
you
offer.
have two types of purchasing groups? One I would call tactical, just pump out orders or do buyer planning, whatever, versus the strategical that really is managing a spend area or
Yes.
commodity
Yeah,
or
we got
something like that.
sourcing, we got procurement, we got NPI procurement, and we got NPI sourcing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us to Gilead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically, to put it bluntly, GMP and non-GMP, right? Purchases and and back to the value. Yes, how you prove that with adding additional aspect of somebody's sourcing will contribute to the resilience. In other words, you cannot go on just hiring people without redefining the role and the expectation. So I think that's the catch, how you define the role and what are the requirements. It's not just adding more bodies, it's adding different responsibilities to contribute to that resilience.
Hey, Bill, I want to give you a far out example to deal with the question you asked about additional functions and responsibilities for purchasing. Think of Warner Brothers as being the number one movie studio in Hollywood. And 15 years ago, when digital technology was coming around them like mushrooms, they had no clue as to what to do. And these were small companies. And so they created a new job called sourcing for technology. And I remember Frenchman, Sebastian, took that responsibility. He went around to all the conferences, all the exhibitions, checked out all the digital companies, and they were all tiny. And believe me, Warner Bros. Made the greatest breakthrough in that transformation. And I see a very similar opportunity for us in life sciences. How many purchasing people are qualified to help the different departments with AI solutions, for example?
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Hey, Christopher Jacks, I got a question for you. For the rest of you, Chris is in charge of strategic sourcing for Catalent. So you can imagine there's a wide breadth of areas that his group handles. So, Chris, tell me a little about the skill sets that you have and the types of areas that you folks negotiate. And I'm particularly interested not in the direct or indirect, but in the contract services space. So your team involved in getting your arms around those negotiations.
Bill, do you mean contracts with our clients?
Contracts on with CMOs.
Okay, yeah, I mean we play an integral part in that because there's obviously obligations that flow down through our suppliers and that. So we partner with our business development group and our contracts team. And maybe not on every single contract, but definitely on some of the bigger ones because there are flow downs that we need to be aware of. To kind of talk to you about the skill set piece. I mean, we're quite diverse within procurement, but to kind of summarize top level view, we do have tactical, we do have strategic, and then within the strategic, we have a split between direct and indirect, as well as category leads. So Catalent is a big entity. We've got, a couple different segments, but we actually have defined category leads across the three segments, and they have to be integrated into that contract piece because each segment, our contracts are different based on the business that we're doing. So it's not just a one fit play there. But yeah, I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, the one thing I'll throw out there too, it was back on the last topic. When you asked what are we tracking, savings obviously is a big thing that does get flown through in procurement that kind of justifies our means. But we also track supplier deviations and quality complaints.
Yeah.
So that to me is how to kind of add in, hey, we're not just trying to get the cheapest suppliers, the best value add. And as long as you're managing, the supplier complaint piece, that's kind of proof there that, we're not just going to try to find the cheapest supplier and just generating risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you that have supplier management programs, who's in charge of that? Purchasing, quality, or someone else?
For Catalan, it's a joint venture between quality and procurement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
the different forums, but yeah, jointly together.
Okay.
Especially when you need to review the deviations, right? So that's integral part.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
Bill.
supplier
And close
onboarding
those
too. So if we
kappas, right?
bring in procurement a new supplier, to our group, we have to have concurrence with that supplier management team under quality, who goes in and audits, does all that, all the cool
Yes.
quality stuff to make sure that we're not generating that risk.
Yes.
Yeah. Devendra, I think you had a question?
Is a question I had for the group is there a radical difference whether the purchasing function reports to the CFO or the CEO or the head of supply chain?
I could take that one. Yeah, my whole
Okay.
career, I've never been part of finance until I came to Catalent. So I've experienced the supply chain piece. And yes, absolutely. And I think it depends on the maturity of your finance group. I think it's okay having it under finance, but guess what? They're going to drive savings over everything because they own P&Ls. Whereas supply chain has been a little bit easier because they see the bigger picture. So to me, it doesn't matter where it lies, as long as you've got a finance group that understands, hey, it's not all about driving cost, it's about the overall value add back in. I've heard, I've not experienced it where finance is leading it and they don't pay as much attention to that quality piece, and it's just give me my savings this year. I need to see it in the P&L. So that's a risk, in my opinion, underneath finance if it's not addressed.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, but partnering with finance and having maybe quarterly meetings is really necessary just because of what you just described, to align and to discuss the value add and where you're at as to their targets. So they can understand our pain points. It helps. It doesn't mean that you're going to persuade them in something or sway, but it helps.
I'm not sure if it was just me or the organization I work for, but I went in one company from reporting to the CFO to the COO. And reporting to CFO was great in the sense that I get to learn every year, every dollar that was spent, I got to know about it and was sort of given the direction to if it involves spending money, Bill, your group should be involved in it. But when I reported to the COO, I felt like instead of being perceived as only wanting, they are just to get the lowest cost. I felt like I was more part of operations when I became operations and saw the group and myself as they're there to help us, find the right supplier, manage to inform this to make sure the suppliers performed better and helped leverage them when they weren't performing up to expectations and so forth. So if I had to pick the two, under operations better than under finance. I know we're running past the hour now, so before people start dropping off, I first wanted to announce that the next meeting is going to be same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time on February 12th. That will be the last meeting before our annual conference. So hopefully by then we've nailed down the enough of the agenda to attract you and your peers. And I think we've got a lot of good information from you today, as well as from our meeting, first meeting, to start narrowing in on a topic. But since not every one of you had a chance to speak, and there are challenges that weren't raised that you would like to raise, please reach out to the vendor or I, and we'll follow up with you on that and make sure that everybody's expectations are met. So without further ado, since we're past the hour and some of you now are running away to your next meeting, I'm gonna end the meeting and thank everybody for joining.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks,
Really
Bill.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Great
everyone.
discussion.
Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye.